Good afternoon. We are thrilled that you chose to join us today for this discussion called From Concept to Reality, Utilizing Connected Data Management Strategies to Advance Transportation Infrastructure. And I know we're all engineers or data geeks if we're willing to title something that long. So you're in good company if you're here today. You're going to hear from a really terrific array of transportation experts across the nation who are directly on the front line of utilizing technology, and especially the data that's generated from technology to provide new insights to their work. Our conversation and the insights shared in the next hour are really an acknowledgement that data management plans and systems and strategies are playing an ever-increasing role in the transportation industry's efforts to maintain and manage assets, achieve operational efficiencies, or even plan for improvements that can modernize our systems for enhanced mobility in the future. I'm your host, Joanna Pinkerton, and I am the current chair of the Intelligent Transportation Systems of America Board of Directors, and I am thrilled for you to hear from Dan, Matt, Paul, and Craig about applications where data analytics is having an impact today, but also how it's setting them up for the future in their organizations. I'm going to briefly introduce you to our panelists. Like I said, we have a really incredible crowd today. I'll start with Matt Miller from the Iowa Department of Transportation. Matt will be speaking first. He currently serves as the Director of New and Emerging Technology, Transportation Technology at Iowa DOT, spearheading initiatives focused on connected corridors, connected vehicles, and autonomous technologies. He leverages a passion for solving industry challenges through data and innovation, and he has steered significant advancements in transportation in his state. The role he's in now builds on previous leadership at the Iowa DOT, where he oversaw the e-construction program, implemented real solutions for e-ticketing, digital delivery, 3D modeling, drone technology, and GIS as-built data capture, substantially enhancing project efficiency and data reliability. Matt's also the former chair of the AASHTO subcommittee in innovation of construction technologies, where the future standards and research in construction and engineering are developed nationwide. I do want to mention Matt's early career foundation was through his service in the U.S. Navy, where he was pivotal in launching aircraft aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt during Operation Enduring Freedom. Matt, please allow me, on behalf of everyone here today, to thank you for your service to others and our nation. And I understand from those who know you that your current public service and commitment to innovation and excellence in transport is a testament to your continued commitment to the citizens in Iowa and across the country. After Matt, we will be joined by Dan Flight, San Diego Association of Governments. Many of you may know that as SANDAG. Daniel is the senior modeler for SANDAG. He oversees the agency's cloud infrastructure and data architecture strategy. This includes a massive ongoing cloud migration and digital transformation effort, supporting ITS, planning, data science, and emerging transportation technology programs across the region. Dan previously led the agency's data governance program, instituting standards, policy, and tools for optimizing data asset management. And he's got a background in software development and systems analysis, as well as years of experience developing demographic, economic, and land use forecasting models to support transportation infrastructure planning and policy. This gives Daniel a really unique perspective of the needs of regional transportation systems. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science from University of San Diego and also an MS in predictive analytics from Northwestern. Our third public servant joining us today is Paul Dangelman, Pennsylvania Turnpike. Paul's an accomplished operations and customer service leader with experience in strategic planning, data analytics, and process improvement. He currently serves as the manager of customer service and revenue enforcement for the Pennsylvania Turnpike. He's skilled in utilizing tools like SQL, Power BI, RScript, Python, and others to help with data-driven decisions. And he's been successfully translating these practices to transportation system operations in Pennsylvania. He combines advanced analytical skills with a deep understanding of operational management to support and exceed organizational goals. Paul also holds an MBA in Business and Data Analytics from the University of Maine, I understand. And to tie it all together, Craig Bettman from HNTB. Craig is the data science and AI, artificial intelligence practice lead for HNTB. He's actively growing HNTB's data science and AI capabilities through data wrangling, data visualization, analyzing program performance, predictive modeling, applied AI, and also machine learning models. He has more than 25 years of experience in data science throughout the range of industries, not just at HNTB, and has been working nationally with these clients and others to help identify opportunities for analytics and insights from the data generated from our transportation systems. He has a master's degree in economics from University of Nebraska. I have to tell you, I'm a Buckeye, so I have the final say, the final word there. And he is a big fan of the Huskers football team. I couldn't resist, Craig, sorry. Really, this is a great group of speakers, and I'm looking forward to our time together. You guys are going to make my job easy, which I appreciate. But I hope that all of you on the other side of the screen, I see lots of people logged in today. I hope you'll be engaged by submitting questions in the chat. That's really important to wrapping up our conversation today. But I also want to mention, I hope you would take any lessons learned today and share them within your office, with colleagues. This is really how we get the conversation about the convergence of data science and technology and transportation more broadly mainstream within our organizations. So with that, Matt, I know the scale of what you're doing at Iowa is incredible and vast. I've looked through all of your work. It's so impressive. And I'm really hoping you can give us a high-level overview of what it's like for the most impactful steps in your agency's journey to transforming your transportation work through data-driven decisions. Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the introductions. So that's going to make my second slide very easy here. So one thing I'm a big fan of AI and using the machine learning, the LLMs like ChatGPT. And one of the presentations I remember I put it through and it recommended putting a slide in explaining why you're talking about the subject and what makes you qualified to be talking about the subject. So I have this slide I pretty much put on all my presentations, and it basically sums up that, I've been in construction for over 20 years with the DOT, and worked in government. I've worked for private contractors. I started saving my business cards and keeping those, and I was showing them to my employees like, hey, if you work hard and you keep going. And that's when I had 5 cards, but then I got a couple more promotions, and it's kind of turned into a bad joke now, but I just keep adding to it, so it's kind of a fun thing at this point. But in my newest role, the Director of New and Emerging Transportation Technologies, you're probably like, what is that? The same as I was when I first applied for it. But the key thing to know is Transportation 4.0, which you're probably also like, well, what is that? So if you look up what Transportation 4.0 is, it's like Industry 4.0. It's the next piece of the revolution. So Transportation 1.0 being that age of mechanization, steam engines, early automobiles, 2.0 being roadways, rise of aviation, 3.0 ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, GPS, electronic tolling. 4.0 now, the age of digitalization and automation, autonomous vehicles, connected transport systems, vehicle to everything, drone deliveries, fully integrated data used to optimize freight logistics and urban mobility. And, the AVs, they are here, and we need to be starting to get ready for them. I mean, I rode in this one. I took this video, and this vehicle stalled on me, and I had to call customer support, and it moved along. It really was quite an experience, and we need to make sure that we're ready to deal with these vehicles as they get on our roadways. Obviously AI and data analytics are playing a huge part. The resiliency, it's the sustainability, this digital infrastructure. It's a huge, huge piece of it. And, we could say that's fiber lines and IoT devices, but it's really more than that. It's the data, the underlying data, and how that supports systems like this. And freight mobility, how do we efficiently move goods across our system? So AI, at least at the DOT, how we've been dealing with AI, We're working with like Google and Nerdery on a project where we're taking a lot of our data sets and we're trying to put it together into a system to try to predict crashes. We're trying to use this information to anticipate the likelihood of those and potentially suggest solutions to avoid them. Hoping that this can be a dashboard tool to be used by those local engineers and emergency services across the state and try to adapt and reduce crashes. If, we can adjust some friction here, add a guardrail there, change some lighting, anything to impact the crashes across the state. Wrong way driver detection, so the camera analytics. We're doing this in 50 cameras right now in an initial phase. We expect to expand this to 100 cameras as we move to the next phase of this project, hopefully sometime this year. 511 notifications. This one actually means a lot to me. I know our Castle Rock, our vendor that we're using for our 511 site, with the routes and just telling you where the detours are along the routes. They're like, hey, does anybody have any use for this? I used to work in a construction office, and I used to have to report to all the cities and the emergency services whenever we impacted them with our detours. And I'm like, yes, if I could break out to all the local jurisdictions, how I'm impacting them every day would be a fantastic tool. And so just some practical uses for AI and just everyday functions for what the DOT does. So as far as digital infrastructure, and this is where I tie it back to construction. Construction has been a big piece for me, but I think it plays directly into what we're doing on this ITS side as well, and how these pieces all work together. And we've tried to map this out through construction, this digital as-built idea, this thought of using the IFC digital twin models through the project. So we've tried to map out all the different file systems and pieces that we're using. And I've actually taken a stab at this with our project lifecycle, and we can actually share some links. I've got several links throughout this presentation, so I'm actually on my second link now. If you want to go ahead and drop those links in there, I think that'll be just best, just to drop them all in here. But I've tried to put a spreadsheet together of all these data standards in the different life cycles. So all the planning, and of course, in these standards, you're going to find substandard sections, data dictionaries, but it's trying to create a visualization to these different groups of how these pieces can connect and the different data fields and how we connect them. Beyond just a FME file that's working for the back end, if we can understand how the pieces connect throughout the life cycle, I think that we can be a little more efficient in how we handle our data. So it's a fun little process. I guess I enjoy tinkering, so it's available for anybody to look at. And please critique it, add anything to it, give me your honest opinions. I would love to hear it. So the construction opinions, as were mentioned by Joanna before, e-ticketing, GIS mapping, 3D projects, drones, digital as-builts, technology pilots. E-ticketing was a big piece, and I can tell you I've learned a lot from e-ticketing, and this information has come across through what we're doing with ITS today. So like an e-ticket, on the paper ticket, 12 data fields. On an e-ticket, we're getting 275 lines of data, probably more data than we could possibly read. But we're starting to put that information onto a map. In this case, here's a Google map that, would just obviously if you were to pull it up, but if you were to overlay that with the GeoTIFF from the drone flight. So now you can see the construction progress. You pull in the line work from the design file, you overlay that with these e-tickets, and now you're starting to see the project as it's coming together. A digital as-built, as real time as you can get, and also what's important to know is this was created in a half-hour drone flight and a couple clicks on a smartphone. So it's all part of the workflow. It's no extra process. It's efficiency, no wasted motion is what we're looking for. Also in construction, when we're using drones, we're doing 3D modeling. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. Here's a couple examples. You can actually scan these QR codes. You can play around with this on your phone. You can do measurements. On the left side is a bridge project. Took a 30-minute drone flight. Didn't have to close a lane down. I can get all the measurements I need. On the right side, that was actually done with just the standard iPhone, just walking around walking around this pipe in a ditch, and we're able to pull a lot of measurements. As we're bringing in the IFC files, so this bridge, you can see how the IFC file is interacting with the drone file. And we're able to cut cross sections and see how this performs. And you start to think of how this IFC file, and when you're doing your permits for heavy loads or wide loads, and how that could possibly impact you during operations, um, and how this information is going to have forward movement as we start to store it and we build upon it. And here is just an example of how some of this stuff can tie together. So you have the IFC model, you have the line work, you have the e-ticketing information, you have photos from the project, and different data points that we've collected with survey. Here's an example of some of the augmented reality information. So we're able to pull in the 3D model itself, and you can see it just through your phone as you walk around the project, and you can overlay it. So this is a way to deal with these projects in 3D in construction. And this is really interesting here. So this is one of those scans that's taken, and you're able to overlay it into real life. So you can actually see it anchored there. And it's almost like looking through the ground here. So you can see this pipe as it goes under the ground, and how you can interact with this information. So some really cutting edge things that are coming out of construction, and how can we utilize this as it moves into operations and then maintenance and other processes of the life cycle. We're also taking on station. I want you to pay attention to this product where we're taking the line work from construction, and the inspector brings this up, and they're marking flags and what they're doing through the construction process. It's just a handy tool that gives them real-time station location information. If they take a picture, it gives their location information. And we've gotten an aid grant. This is actually to take a lot of this PDF paper process and turn it into a more digital process. So we're going to push the CAD information directly into our GIS mapping. The ADCMS grant is really going to push the implementation into 1 to 3 assets. And this is actually kind of creating a front end page where designers will upload plans, and it will absorb this information. They'll actually kick back any line work that they have issues with, and they'll be able to address them and update them. So what are we doing for the future? Well, we're collaborating with industry, universities, other DOTs to drive innovation forward. We have our Iowa Advisory Council on Automated Transportation. That's an internal group to the state that tries to interact with other groups across the state. And, we're looking as we do have an automated vendor that is expecting to come into the state and begin operating. So we're learning how to deal with that. We've made some adjustments to our webpage on how these autonomous vendors will come into our state. We've been working with this I-80 Corridor Coalition, if you've heard about this. We're looking at the data feeds across the entire corridor and looking to normalize the data dictionaries for the 511 events data. We're looking at a test connection with the Situation Data Exchange to do a 2-month pilot test, and also exploring a one-stop shop type scenario, university coalition like RITIS, WeatherShare, state to state, and possibly a pooled fund study. And we are the data standards lead on this effort. We brought all 11 states and tollways together, and we're hoping that we can create a data dictionary that everybody can kind of agree to. It's probably one thing with the TMDD that's out there is everybody's using kind of a different version, and then they have different levels of adherence to it. So working with industry for what they need and what the states are doing, we are trying to find the pieces that work together. And with that SDX test, we're able to pull in our information, push it through this Corvus system that Tri-Hydro has created, and that's able to map the data feeds in a way that we're able to push out to vehicles. So that's an exciting test that we're looking forward to. The I-35 Advancement Alliance is also coming along with this test, and hopefully we're going to see some really good things come out of this group. The other thing that we've got is a smart arrow board. So if you've ever heard of these actually ping a location, tell you if the board is going left or right. So that pops up on a map. And this is what you would see on the Iowa State map, where the icon is listed. But here is what you would see on Waze. So you can see roadwork, lane closed, merge right, but here it is on our 511 site. So the thing is with the smart arrow board is you have to manually connect it to an event. So that event has to be created by the engineering office. So when it is connected, you get this green little check mark. It's verified by a smart device. So that is the one issue with using the smart device. It's great that it's there and it tells us where it's at, but it does need to be connected to that uh, manual device. But we're doing a test through e-ticketing where we're connecting to all these different pavers and rollers. And in this case, we're doing this project with Delaware. We were on the second year now. We've already connected 3 or 4 projects at this point with different devices, and we're actually able to tell that workers are on site. So the inspector can mark that location, and the work zone activates either when a ticket's created or when that equipment fires up, and it's notifying that there's workers out there. So here are some of those projects as they're being fired up from the equipment. And here are all the projects that have e-tickets across the state. So the potential here is huge and maybe even larger than what we have with smart arrow boards. And remember earlier I showed that on-station tool. Well, every time the inspector brings it out, that device is pinging a location. Well, they are also able to send a location to Icon. So we're able to see where the inspector is on a map as well and also send that information. So we're able to identify where these inspectors are. We don't need any extra devices. We're utilizing the devices that are already out there. We have the Smart Grant application in, and that's going to try to cover that AI data analytics. But one of the big things, at least that I'm looking at, is the digitization of the traffic control diary. Right now, this is a handwritten process. It's a PDF paper like this. So the contractor turns in. The form is actually filled out by the inspector on the CARS website. You'll notice that it doesn't have speed limit on there. And this is what it looks like to the driver on Waze. So between Iowa 210, Woodward, road construction work in progress, lane closed, intermittently, look out for flaggers. What does that mean to a driver? And this is what it looks like on Google. So there's an issue here, right? So what if we could digitize this process? Mark the road work ahead, put the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit, mark the merge and the end road work. And then perhaps one day you take a picture and you use AI to use the metadata of the location and actually tell you, hey, that sign looks right, wrong, or the merge is here, and you could actually process on the contractor's part, I believe. And just kind of wrapping up here, I like to tell a story of kind of what this life cycle and how all these pieces fit together. So imagine a stop sign is created in CAD. That is supported by the construction information, the certification, the geolocation, the survey data. It is physically there. That information is pushed into our Esri GIS asset system, which is picked up by OEM car manufacturers, satellite radio, V2X, whatever it may be. And finally, that information can actually be pushed to the driver. And they could see that sign. And my question would be, is at what point would that sign itself not really be necessary? We've had instances where a paint truck has marked a line because it went off the roadway, and then a Tesla vehicle following behind went off that same roadway. So when we talk about cybersecurity and these other issues with autonomous vehicles, well, if you can bypass the vehicle's operational capacity by tricking the physical infrastructure, then it is somewhat limited. Truck parking is another big issue. So one thing that I'm looking at is the ELD data itself, where we're actually capturing where they're parking when they're in sleeper berths. I'm actually trying to see if I can get this information from the FMCSA because I believe that we could use this for truck parking nationally. And if we could get it into a data feed, we could geolocate these areas where they're parked because it is going into an FMCSA server. If we could ping those locations on a map, geofence them, we could not only capture where they're parking and have an idea of where they're able to park, but we could also have really good information about where we need to be building future parking and have a better idea of our future plans. And with that, where do we go from here? Just to implement the recommendations from the NCHRP 2024 Collective Individual Actions for State DOTs envisioning and realizing the next era of America's transportation infrastructure. And that's all I have.
Wow, thank you, Matt. That's all you have. That was incredible. It really is a good operations perspective. I started my career in construction as well, so I really appreciated how you tied things back to how it impacts people in the field. That really resonated with me. And you're clearly leading your agency to operational efficiencies across the spectrum, right? Not just in one area. And that was a really generous offer. I want to point out to our participants that you did offer to for people to review, scan the documents that you provided and to provide feedback. That's a generous offer, and I hope people will take you up on that because that's a true innovation cycle. That's how we all get better and get to next. But I think, Craig, before we move on to our next speaker, I believe I saw that you had a question or a comment for Matt.
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Joanna. So, Matt, you clearly are a guy who loves data and can handle massive amounts of data. You showed all the data sources and what you've done with it, and really some great examples of how you've distilled that down to maps or digital representations or ways that the end user can leverage that data. My question for you is, what is your process or the secret that you may be willing to share with the group on how you make decisions on which data do I use and how do I turn terabytes of data into something that one of my colleagues in the DOT who's out working in the field can utilize that data. My commissioner can make decisions based on all this data. The end user of this of all the transportation, that person driving down the roadway, how do getting them information that's relevant to them? How do you bridge that big gap?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's dynamic, right? The way we think about turn by turn directions these days, you don't take the ramp, you got to be in the fifth lane of that ramp when you get off of it. It's becoming more sophisticated, and I think our answers are becoming more sophisticated. One thing we did in construction with e-ticketing, we put cameras on the paver to try to capture license plates of the trucks when they were delivering loads. And we knew that the best rate we could ever get to is 90% capture rate. And somebody, it was a contractor there, it's like, well, why don't you just connect to the paver? We've got all this information on the paver. And it was like, well, yeah, let's look into that. So I think that you have to be willing to listen to alternative ideas and not ignore the things that are available. And just be willing to try new things. And honestly, if it's a low cost, big impact solution, like that's what we should probably be looking at first, anyways. And then as the need calls for it, look into these very sophisticated, uh, more intensive solutions.
Great, thank you.
I think that's a great question, and I have a feeling as we move on to Dan at Sandag that that's going to come up a little bit. Like, how do you decide to try things? And for those of us who've worked in the public sector, it is a difficult balance of figuring out, how do I do my core function every single day to serve the public, but how do I continue to evolve so I can serve them better? Knowing that different areas, different regions have different risk tolerances. So now, Dan, I'd like to ask you to take us up into the cloud and talk a little bit about the incredible efforts that Sandag has made to enable digital technology for the agencies across your region. You guys have done a lot of work on what I'll call the back end that a lot of times people don't even see.
Let me just pull it up. All right, all good. Can see. Looks good. All right. So today's topic, Matt did kind of a great job covering real world applications, the types of things that he's actually doing in the field. Mine's really focusing today on the modern data management platform and practices, Sandag's experience migrating there, our continual evolution, continual migration, and then some early wins, early applications that we've had with the technology thus far. So there we go. What is SANDAG? SANDAG is the Metropolitan Planning Organization and Regional Transportation Planning Agency for the 18 cities and unincorporated area of the San Diego region, about 3.3 million population. We really have more than just an MPO designation. We're sort of a regional data clearinghouse, regional decision-making forum. We have some sort of unique representation and planning foci. We have board representation from our neighboring regions, including Mexico. We're a strong binational region. We do a lot of binational planning, capital project implementation. The DoD sits on our board. We have representation from the 18 different tribal nations that are representative of San Diego County. And as I said, we really are a lot more comprehensive than just transportation. We have land use and environmental, borders planning, social equity. We also are a self-help county or self-help region. We have a sales tax that Transnet that supports these planning efforts, and we're somewhat unique in that we have a capital program as well. We actually not just plan and design these projects, we build many of them and in some cases operate them. So today I'm going to be, you'll hear me say emerging transportation technologies and ITS kind of interchangeably. So I'm not sure if that's 100% correct, but that's how it is in my mind. But it's a long established program at SANDAG. They've been doing this for quite a while. But currently, the 4 kind of key focus areas are what you see on the right there, this smart infrastructure corridors, mobility, and borders. All active planning and pilot projects associated with each of these. Our latest regional transportation plan kind of calls out this need for a next operating system that would bring together all of these future emerging transportation technologies together. So there could be, intelligent routing, intelligent trip making, really serve as a data hub for better planning. So, today I'm really going to be talking about the motivations and the drivers for cloud migration, its benefits, the SANDAG experience, and how we've been able to apply it thus far. I don't come from an ITS, emerging transportation technologies background originally. As Joanna mentioned, I actually came from the socioeconomic transportation demand modeling. So when SANDAG began its cloud journey, it really was through organic business demand. On the analytics and modeling side, everything was on-prem. We on-prem data warehouses, compute. It was really painful when we run into resource constraints and limitations. So for several years prior, leading up to this, we'd had this emerging demand going. We also had some strategic initiatives. We had a new agency CEO at the time, and we really, it was a focus on modernizing the agency's technology stack. This push to become a quote unquote data-driven organization. Our effort began right about the beginning of COVID. We started in early 2020. We knew that our pain points were on the data stack, particularly with our planning and modeling efforts. So we really quickly needed to do kind of a lift and shift cloud deployment. That said, we wanted to do it right. I think many of our agencies, we have technical debt, we have aging IT infrastructure, legacy systems, and you kind of get a fresh start when you migrate to the cloud. I mean, that's at least how it was in my mind. So we wanted to kind of do things right from the get-go. And so we were looking for a standards-based framework on how to migrate. Resource-wise, we really did it quite limited. We had an in-house team. We had some contractor assistance. HNTB was part of this, so shout out to their great efforts and assistance. And again, these are kind of the motivations. This isn't an exhaustive list, but I think first and foremost, it's probably an inverted list for public agencies versus private sector, but the simplified procurement was first and foremost of importance to me. Anyone working in public sector probably understands the lengthy procurement cycles. It can take 6, 9, 12 months or longer to procure basic urgent hardware that you would need. So, you know, a cloud model, it's really responsive and flexible in that way. Obviously, the cloud scalability and elastic benefits, you just adjust your resources based on what you're doing. You're not committed to a single resource profile. The vertical and horizontal scaling potential. Always having the most current hardware and software. I think up until just a couple of years ago, we had stuff, some old hardware that had to be kept up, legacy systems that were maybe 15 or 20 years old. So I'm sure every public agency has some of these. With a cloud native or cloud-based approach, you really try to eliminate that burden altogether. Always keeping the most current hardware and software. It frees up a lot of your IT team's burden around lifecycle management, patching, all that stuff they don't really like to do anyway. It definitely, as we saw with COVID and being out of office, having a reliable infrastructure stack, business continuity, disaster recovery. When we were fully on-prem, email, servers, all our storage, even at our data center, there's a high degree of vulnerability with that, and so you really just have this robust menu of choices for how much disaster recovery and business continuity you want for your data. Redundancy, the security. It's not to say that the cloud is natively secure. It actually exposes you to more security threats. This isn't to talk about security, but our IT team actually really embraced it because of the expansive set of tools and monitoring. Now with AI, there's a lot of automated logging and threat detection. So it's a lot of these go to show that it doesn't eliminate all your problems. It actually creates new and maybe more interesting challenges for your teams. Final thing is on cost effectiveness. For us, it really is a cost-effective approach for your peak workloads. Definitely the pay-as-you-go consumption model, scaling up and then scaling down as you go. And then looking at it from a total cost of ownership perspective is really important. Sometimes you get a monthly cloud bill and your heart sinks or whatever, but you start to think about, okay, your backups are included, always on availability, the types of things we didn't have before. You want to make sure that you're comparing an apples to apples comparison. So I'll kind of run over this just quickly, but this is probably not new to most of you, but this is kind of the spectrum of responsibility or the shared responsibility model. Starting on the left, no matter who your cloud infrastructure provider is, it's probably one of the 3 listed there, although there are others. When you're on-prem, you basically are responsible for everything, soup to nuts. As you start moving up that adoption curve, that infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, stuff there that's in darker blue, your infrastructure provider starts managing more and more. We're seeing so many native SaaS or software as a service types of offerings. I think when we all first started migrating to the cloud, it was kind of this mix of infrastructure as a service, some PaaS services. More and more, I think it's kind of SaaS native. You're seeing. I'll get into that a little bit. One thing I want to bring up too, it sounds good and it's exciting. I mean, we had a lot of ambition, but you also want to be very sort of grounded and look at sort of best adoption practices. These weren't fully available, to be honest with you, when we first jumped into it. So maybe the lesson learned from Sandag's perspective is there really weren't well-established frameworks to the degree there are today. And, this is only 2 or 3 years later. So you can see how quickly it's maturing and evolving. But can't stress enough if you're either, contemplating cloud adoption, or if you're there and not fully there yet, make sure you look at your vendors, your cloud infrastructure providers. Cloud Adoption Framework, or the CAF, you'll see it called a lot. I promise you, just do a web search for whichever it is, and one exists for whichever vendor you're with. It really gives you well-polished, standardized guidance, anti-patterns, if everyone's familiar with those. It's things not to do, basically, things that sound good and counterintuitive, but things you don't want to do. You don't want to repeat the same mistakes that you've made on-prem. You want to you kind of have that fresh start. You want to look at best practices for successful migrations. Best thing I think it provides are these templates and recipes. Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as reference type architectures. Basically, whatever your problem type is, there's one, whether it's retail or ITS or finance. There's going to be a reference type architecture that's kind of an out-of-the-box solution that gives you 80 to 90% of the stuff you would need, infrastructure-wise. That's paired with these things called the well-architected frameworks. Amazon's got one, Azure's of course got one, Google Cloud. So again, all vendors have these. They vary slightly, but these are the things, once you're up or as you're building, you really want to build to achieve, maturity or strength in each of these 5 areas. So, reliability, you want robust, durable solutions. Security is probably the first most important now. Making sure that you're deploying all the tools available. Cost optimization is a big thing. I mean, you can waste a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. And as I said, I still would defend that being cloud native or cloud centric can be very cost efficient, but you have to know what you're doing, or you have to learn from your mistakes. Operational excellence, this observability and monitoring, and then understanding performance efficiency. So these two things, they're not maybe the most exciting reads, but please refer to them. I'd highly recommend it as you're migrating. Which brings us to the application to data management for ITS. So I don't often say required reading. These are required readings. The links will probably be in the chat there. But these came out in 2020, Report 952 and 282. The framework for managing data from emerging transportation technologies to support decision-making, and then the guidebook for managing data from emerging transportation technologies for transportation. So, it just sort of coincidentally came about. These were published as we were engaged in our cloud migration. Highly relevant. They're good for all audiences. Leadership can read these as much as your technical staff. They understand the agency constraints, and then really there's a lot of supplemental tools and checklists for how you migrate. I won't go through all of this, but this is one key takeaway from that, from the framework, that distinguishing between your traditional data model versus the modern data stack, and all of the different characteristics from system design to data governance, resource efficiency. And from a data perspective, I think this one stands out. The schema on write, you have to define your schema before you actually can start pulling the data versus schema on read. I think for many of us already doing this, this is nothing new, but this really idea of enhanced flexibility in the modern data stack. Systems are software configurable. Your hardware is software configurable, essentially. So you see this infrastructure as code. You're constantly redeploying your hardware, your networking infrastructure, and I think another key takeaway is you're not restricting your data. You're actually trying to promote many eyes looking at it. So this is a slide I like, or a graphic I like. This is sort of what is that modern data stack. It's cloud first. It's centered around a data lake, data warehouse, for the data lakehouse, which is kind of the most recent evolution in the last couple of years. As I said, these SaaS tools and services are very much the norm. You've got open endpoints and APIs, so you really, by design, do not have vendor lock, or should not have vendor lock necessarily. A lot of out-of-the-box recipes, marketplace solutions. No matter what your deployment is, there's probably, you know, an AWS marketplace, an Azure marketplace, or Google marketplace for one of these types of data pipelines. But you know, the classic approach, which I'll show in a moment, really had this on-prem ETL, which is very rigid. It worked fine. I mean, it actually served us quite well for many years. But this modern data stack gives you a lot of data democratization, a lot of additional functionality. Again, these aren't a comprehensive list of the different vendors, but these are some of the more common ones you'll see. So yeah, this is that platform evolution I talked about in the beginning. I call it this 3-stage ETL, you know, on-prem sources going through an ETL into your data warehouse, and then you have reporting and analytics. You know, in the late 2010s, early 2020s, you know, had the data lake model, which was very popular. It still is, I should say. And, you know, bringing in all your raw data to the central data lake. And now the lake house has kind of emerged as the go-to de facto standard. I think all major vendors are going towards this. What is the lake house, by the way? It really brings together the best things of each of the data warehouse and the data lake. So it's like a data warehouse in your lake. You have different zones within it for raw data, curated. You'll hear about this medallion architecture I'll show you in a minute. It brings on a whole layer of monitoring, governance, rigidity, or you know, oversight, I guess, to your data lake. Again, this is this lakehouse medallion architecture that is now really common. You bring in all your raw data to this bronze layer. It's the raw, you know, uncurated, you know, don't touch it, but you know, keep everything, archive everything. Silver is where it starts to be cleansed, and you know, it's relatively usable for analytic purposes. Gold is, you know, these are the single version of truth, if you will. So this methodology now is pretty standard place. So yeah, your quality increases as you go across. What's it used for? Many different data sources, streaming, just on-prem classic, you know, structured, unstructured. But this is kind of emerging now as the de facto standard. Finally, some successful migrations and deployments to date. This isn't a complete listing, but just some of our larger ones, you know, complete federated identity management, Active Directory in the cloud. Our data science, as I mentioned, that was kind of the early big application, data lake migration, VMs, data warehouse, now using Databricks, Delta Lake. Our sandag.org website was overhauled, all Azure cloud-based. The agency file archive, more than 200, I think that's old, that might be 300 or 400 now, terabytes of agency data, modeling data. We built this with HNTB. We developed this mobility data clearinghouse pilot, bringing in all the micromobility operator data so that it could be analyzed, route assessed, you know, do a lot of advanced analytics on it. I was using Cosmos DB, compute VMs, and I'd be remiss if I, you know, last but certainly not least, this was a big lift with assistance from HNTB, our enterprise GIS, ArcGIS cloud deployment, fully Azure cloud based, and we host the regional GIS spatial data warehouse in there. So, any questions, or in the interest of time, we move on? Or...
Well, I think that's exactly what we needed, Dan. First of all, homework and must reads. Thank you. We all need more of that. But all joking aside, it really is helpful to hear from you And it was good of you to start with like the early wins of like there are resources available. And once you have an understanding within an organization that agencies can make these big steps, like, there are footprints for this. It's very doable. Not to mention, it's always been my experience that agencies are willing to share lessons learned, kind of like you are doing today. And I'm pretty confident that most of us, and likely those participating today, we're constantly weighing how to evolve into more more informed decision making for our transport projects. So understanding the backside of this is really important. With that, I'm going to actually switch us to Paul. And because Paul, you're in great company today with Matt and Dan. Like we've had, Matt open us up with this really broad perspective statewide. Dan took us up into the cloud, and I know you have an example here in Pennsylvania, and we'd like to see some examples you have of where you're using technology, with all of this back office function to support your core mission at the Turnpike. Can I turn it over to you, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Really hard to follow. So Dan and Matt, phenomenal stuff that you guys went over. Hopefully I can do service and end this well here, and I'll try to go as quickly as possible for time purposes. See if it allows me to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Nope. Oh, wait, it's not allowing
Not
me
yet.
to share
Oh, boy.
It says it's not allowing me to share the screen. I'll try one more time. Did that work?
There we go.
All right, phenomenal. I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for giving me the time to talk today. Again, my name is Paul. I'm the manager of revenue enforcement and customer service for the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Joanna, thank you for giving a note to Maine and the Black Bears. Go Black Bears. Not many people go to that school, so just want to give them a shout out. Data is my passion, but I also enjoy coaching basketball, hanging with my family, and playing golf. I do love golf. I have an 11-year-old son who's an amazing golfer, and I'm going to take a minute to embarrass myself on a confession that, he's officially surpassed my skill set and beats me consistently on the course. And he holds his head high. I'm going to famously note that he has officially putted with Scotty Scheffler. If anybody's a golfer out there, the #1 golfer in the world, my son had an opportunity to play with him. And yes, I do have photos. I'm a proud father of that moment. So I wanted to encapsulate it in front of a big audience for everybody to know. There a quote that resonates with me. It's on the screen here. Numbers have an important story to tell. They rely on you to give them a clear, convincing voice. I included this quote on the main slide because it highlights the importance of effective data management. Numbers alone don't tell a story. They rely on how we manage, organize, and interpret them to uncover insights. Data management is the foundation that allows us to extract meaning, identify patterns, and understand trends or behaviors by ensuring data accuracy, accessible, and well constructed. We can present it clearly and convincingly, enabling smart decision-making and actionable strategies. I am honored to be part of this panel of seasoned transportation experts as we discuss connected management strategies are shaping the future of transportation infrastructure. My story is a little bit unique compared to everybody else here. I've only been in the transportation tolling industry for 7 months. However, I do bring 15 years of experience from the tech industry, where I hone my abilities to transform complex challenges into actionable data insights. In the world of data analytics, I believe that good decisions are driven by data, not just guessing. We all know good decisions come from truly understanding the data and avoiding sparse correlation, because correlation does not always equal causation. Today, I will review some areas that I've been focusing on since joining the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which will illustrate how we've connected data management strategies and are shaping the future of our agency. I'm excited to be part of a big project here at the PTC, which is the implementation of our new back office system. We will be enabling us to integrate and manage data more effectively. This is going to help us to deliver a best-in-class customer experience, position ourselves for future connected mobility and efficiencies. The project is massive, with a lot of moving parts, and I'm proud of the vision that UBOS has taken on, which is to deliver consistent, best customer experience across all contact channels and platforms at the PTC. Secondly, I'm going to discuss a little bit more on some data analytics and toll-by-plate data. I've had the privilege to work with one of our panelists, Craig Bettman, and then his counterpart, Craig Rolling at HNTB, on not just looking at people driving the tollway as just vehicles or patrons, but actually identifying them as customers. Customers historically will paint a great picture through data points, which is occurring on the roadway and how to improve them. We have great brainstorming sessions. We love throwing ideas off of each other. My Fridays are absolutely phenomenal with them. So, I typically lean toward the notion that never payers would occur to such things as financial hardships or macro or microeconomic issues. Through the trends of my career, I've always connected demographics of affluent to timely payments and those potentially going through those hardships or less affluent or more susceptible to non-payments. The tolling industry had me eating my words of always telling people that sometimes the variables in the data set are connected through coincidence or another unforeseen factor. This in turn means removing sparse correlation through my opinionated background. I needed to review the data in a different lens to make better decisions and to have really good strategies. But before we get into that, I'm going to touch here again on UBOS, as we call it here at the PTC, or a unified back office system. It's being built, which will be the engine for driving our data integration, our operation efficiencies, and our customer experience transformation. I'll walk you through some of our key components as they will impact the PTC operations and customers. I'm not a big IT guy. I will show you the architecture behind it. Bear with me. I'm going to keep it very high level on what I know. And leave the techie stuff to the IT guys. Dan, you're going to look at the infrastructure. You're going to say, wow, you're going to love it. One of the biggest components is having full access to our data going forward. Through data integration, we'll be using Informatica, which will help us with data integration efforts, ensuring that data from various systems will flow seamlessly into one ecosystem. This is critical for us to eliminate silos, where in the past we've had different teams working with disconnected data sets, which has been problematic for us. We're going to work to enable real-time data exchange. For our operations team, this is going to be a unified source of truth, reducing duplications of efforts, enabling faster decision-making for us. Our customers will also be able to receive accurate data information in a seamless experience, whether they're calling our call center or using the portal or using a mobile application. Let me transition here to the architecture. We'll be using SAP Cloud, Analytics Cloud for both operation efficiencies and strategic planning. I love Power BI, so utilizing the analytical cloud through SAP is going to be new, but fun and exciting. I can't wait to explore it. We can see in real time what part of the system do we see the highest revenue trends, or where our customers are not paying and how frequently they're doing so. We'll be driving daily decision making to be more agile in the future. We will use the analytical cloud for predictive and prescriptive analytics. This will allow us to see future trends and be more proactive rather than reactive. We're looking to future-proof and innovate across the industry. I talk all the time about the business life cycle, and I compare it to the BlackBerry journey. I think everybody knows the story of BlackBerry, right? You have a great product as BlackBerry once did, but through evolution and innovative growth, competing companies overtook the product. This proves that time over time, we must be ready to advance our technology and continue to innovate. PTC's new system will be flexible, ready for emerging trends such as inductive charging for EVs. We're ready for any different legislative changes that are going to occur, ensuring that we remain ahead of the industry curve. PTC will continue to innovate using data to avoid stagnation. UBOS and its architecture is built on a strong foundation, integrating key tools such as Microsoft Dynamics 365 for customer interactions and case management, ServiceNow for IT service management, Voice over IP plus IVR systems for enhanced communication. Ton of talk about using AI also for all of these systematic things. A lot of innovative ideas running through. Together, these components will be a comprehensive system that supports every aspect of the tolling lifecycle, from customer inquiries and the payment processing to advanced reporting and analytics. So just quick overview of our new system. Again, very excited for it. I'll transition and keep it going here from a timely perspective on our toll by plate and our findings. Toll by plate represents one of the most intriguing aspects of our analysis. understanding how our customers behave, which will really interpret how our strategic planning is moving forward. We look to understand why our customers are willing or not willing to pay for the services they're using. Reviewing these aspects of the analysis, you can see on the slide, we've categorized to understand customer trends and behaviors. We have taken significant strides in evaluating customer cohorts, revealing invaluable insights into patterns, payment patterns, geographical tendencies, and their turnpike usages. As I review the data, it's been very eye-opening for me, allowing us to analyze proper payment history, invoice amounts, regional and zip code data based upon operating behaviors. We've examined how customers use our roadways, including trip frequency, system duration, what kind of vehicles they're using, commercial, personal, motorcycle, etc. Just a few examples. To truly understand and find meaningful insights, we understand this is going to be a journey of critical thinking. As I alluded to earlier, brainstorming session, a little trial and error till we really understand what's going on here. We've created a comprehensive roadmap with an analytical framework to identify behavioral trends that will allow PTC to create detailed and thoughtful strategies by promoting good behaviors and curbing the bad learned behaviors. All this in hopes to improve toll-by-plate customer behavior, encourage and reward the good customers in the future. One of the first steps to understand our customers was to segment them, to our toll-by-plate customers, and classify them in customer types. These segments, as you can see on the screen here, we have our prompt payers, those who use the system and pay on time, partial payers, customers who pay inconsistently, paid in full but late payers, and our never payers, customers who use the system but fail to pay in a timely manner, and customers who just decide not to pay at all. Contrary to the expectations, as I talked about earlier, our demographic analysis revealed no strong correlation between median income household and the likelihood of payment. One key finding showed that prompt payers are significantly more likely to settle their first invoices, roughly about 70%, compared to 15% of all other segments. While our analysis focused on personal vehicle ownership, we identified a smaller but impactful segment of likely commercial customers within this viewed data. These commercial users accounted for only 4% of the toll-by-plate roadway transactions within this POV set data set. Isolating this group has enabled us to better prepare for future migrations of our system, improve our data organizations, and refine our operational policies. By cleansing and restructuring the data set, we aim to strengthen data infrastructure and establish more effective business rules to make sure that we understand what's being presented. So if I pull POV data, I would love to see POV data. There shouldn't be a high mix of commercial into there. Our analysis also highlights a concerning trend that customers who never pay are highly likely to remain never payers. I know, a very shocking observation, but one that's very intriguing to me of when or when they cannot pay. These users will continue to use the system heavily without contributing financially into the services they're using. Again, the hypothesis is this is a learned behavior, but by understanding the why, it could significantly impact the future of toll-by-plate collections for us. Currently, never payers outnumber partial payers by a factor of 3. But there is good news. Approximately 60% of our toll-by-plate customers do pay in full, reflecting a distinct pattern of positive payment behavior. So we can learn upon that as well. To understand the never payers, we've developed a creative and engaging approach, categorize them into actual subsegments. These have been introduced, these subsegments, at a IBTTA conference in Cleveland by some amazing leaders, my leaders, Stacia Ritter and Craig Shuey. I'm not going to take credit for these AI generated photos, but I absolutely love these bears. So these are a subsegment of never payers. This is really understanding the data a little bit deeper in here. We have our polarpreneurs, again, maybe commercial customers, our grizzly globetrotters, which are outer state users of never payers, our polar pilots that are contribute to 5% of our never payers in terms of total unpaid tolls. And we have Kodiak contrarians who probably know about the Easy Pass, but choosing not to. And then our curious koalas that probably need more education. These all play a really big part in understanding, but also to create strategies to curb these behaviors. Looking ahead, again, working with HNTV, we're looking to create an AI predictive modeling that's taking in tolling analytics to the next level. Using advanced models such as gradient boosting decision trees, we aim to assess the likelihood of toll-by-plate invoice being paid within 60 days. This approach allows us to identify high-risk customers in areas with the greatest never payment risks. The predictive modeling will handle both numerical and categorical data, making it ideal for our data set. The model will capture nonlinear relationships between deeper insights into the customer behavior. As we review the features and the importance each represent, we can identify each factor's most influential payment behaviors. The insights we gather from the toll-by-plate data combined with our predictive modeling is going to be transformational for the journey for the PTC. By categorizing our customer behaviors, segmenting the never payers, and leveraging data analytics, well, we can build a roadmap for strategies to enhance customer engagement, encouraging timely payments, and drive operational efficiency. The strategic approach will position us to remain innovative and proactive, setting the standard for tolling data management for the future. Addressing these challenges will require strategic planning, policy adjustments, and data-driven intervention to encourage better customer behavior and enhance revenue collection for us. But I'm going to say we're merely just scratching the surface, right? We've just started to go down this journey. We'll continue to look and create better strategies to make sure that our customers have the best experience on our roadway. I know I went over time. I really apologize, but hopefully you guys got a little bit out of it.
Yeah, no worries, Paul. As a matter of fact, we still have people online, and for those who had to drop off, they can easily click back on once this is loaded on the website and finish the webinar today. I have to say that it's terrific to hear that we've officially converted someone from the tech industry to the transportation industry. But, I actually say that a little bit in jest because I'd really like to challenge all of us who are here today. We're here for a reason. We must have, similar interests or like-mindedness. I want to challenge us to think that the two industries really are not separate, because information backed by technology makes a huge difference when we're serving our customers, the traveling public. And so if we're going to, accomplish any type of goals like safer, greener, smarter for all people, we have to think of these industries as integrated together. And I appreciated how all of your system improvements in Pennsylvania really think about the customer first. Although I don't ever want to have one of those, logos assigned to me. So I will make sure I pay my tolls.
The bears will
Thank you
catch
to
on.
all of our
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, thank you to all of our speakers today. And most importantly, Matt, Paul, Dan, for your gift to us, which is your gift of time and sharing. And all of our participants online, I know we have reached time. So our request to you is, if you have a question that did not get answered by a subsequent speaker, in the chat, you'll see an email. It's membership@its.org. Feel free to send your question there so that it can be directed to the speakers who can answer them via email later. This will be available on ITS America's website for download, or if you provided your email when you registered, you will receive a copy of today's discussion. And finally, in closing, as a transportation executive who has been working on change management across organizations for years, I'm really going to reiterate my call to action to each of you that I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar. I hope you'll take lessons learned from today, like one bit of information that you picked up, and carry it forward within your agencies, your offices, your colleagues, to get the conversation rolling about how important it is for us to always be making sure that we're using insights and technology to improve our systems. Like, I'm not saying you have to talk about this at holiday parties this season, but that's okay if you want to. It will probably happen in my family. We have 4 engineers around the table. So thank you again to everyone today. I'm going to call it a wrap, and just thank you again to Craig, Daniel, Matt, and Paul. We really appreciated you sharing today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.